You've all wondered how someone with millions of mastery points on a champion could be stuck in silver, gold, or any rank. They should be able to get challenger or at the very least master, but why don't so many of them actually climb? In this jungle guide, I will reveal what you can learn from a challenger 3 million point Vi by comparing their gameplay to a 1.5 million point Vi who is gold 4. And so basically this is a must watch if you main Vi or want to play Vi and learn exactly how to maximize her to a challenger level. Usually I would go over a whole game and fill it with general jungle tips, but we have videos all over both of my channels for that, and for specific elo based and champion based coaching, I have 70 plus VODs available on my Patreon. And so therefore, without further hesitation, let's begin. And now the most basic form of champion mastery will obviously be first clearing. Yes, everyone who has this many points on a champion will know how to first clear. No, you are incorrect. The early game and the clearing in terms of our game planning and mechanics is literally the biggest separator between a high elo champion main and everyone else who mains said champion. This literally represents your game plan, matchup knowledge, and sets your jungle tempo for the whole early game. I cannot oversell this. What's that, you don't believe me? Observe. Blue side clear into red side movement. Very typically, our challenger jungler will finish the blue side and then Q midway through the lane to get to the red buff faster. This results in finishing crossing the mid lane at 2 minutes 26. If however she decides to save that Q to circumvent vision to get a good gank off before that red buff, you know, to deal with potential invades as well, then 2 minutes 30 is the mark. And of course there is some variance as not all clears are identical and little mistakes can occur here and there. However, our gold Vi, as you can see, hits it at 239 due to not smiting on Grom. HP is a resource like time. Look at the HP and look at it side by side. Despite watching 20 to 30 games of this jungle as much as I could, handle, I couldn't find a clear where they actually just smited the Grump because it takes so long and got into the wolves as soon as possible. So obviously you can adjust some timing to that, but basically you're still looking at a huge difference. Look at the general principle side by side now. Look at how the mechanics work in terms of flowing and kiting the camps. Even if auto-attacking and backing is not always the best thing to do, it's at least significantly more optimized than our gold jungler. But if we compare the rank 1 Korean Vi to the rank 1 NN Vi that we're using for the protagonist of this video, look at the over-kiting of the blue buff on the first rotation, resulting in a smite on the Gromp. And the Korean jungler actually also saves smite and reaches the same point by 230-231. So even there's an 8 to 9 second advantage that the challenger Korean jungler has over our gold 4 Vi. And it also shows how over-kiting can actually compromise your speed and you can always end up at the same HP anyway. And obviously values of leash and ability to actually, have teams help you out with that is something that factors into it. But hopefully you can already see just in one quadrant the big differences that you can have regardless of mastery points. The Korean challenger player, 150,000 only. Now what exactly is the gold Vi doing? Well, the gold Vi is doing a 5 camp in about 3 minutes 12 using that smite, 1 smite. The challenger jungler that we're focusing on does a 4 camp with 1 smite by 252. That is a 20-second advantage, and that's because you really need to think about your game plan and how to enact it and enable it for Vi. She is not Hecarim, she is not Diana, she is not Diddley, she is not Kartha. She will not be full clearing and matching those tempos, which means the advantage you have is being able to get level 3 faster and then get on the map before them and make things happen. Yes, even though the gold 4 jungler does a 3-12-5 camp, I could not find almost 1 or 2 good examples that match that because Vi's and high elo, they're not doing this. The closest I could find was doing the red and then the raptors, which technically makes more sense because you get the burn damage on an AoE camp that you can't really do that quickly. And even though Talon helps out with a bit of rake damage, still 302, 304, 305, that's faster than 312. But our challenger jungler is always looking to get an advantage with Vi before the enemy jungler can react. Whether that's a leashless 3 camp invade by going 240, smiting it, making sure you get it done. Whether that's doing a blue side and then cutting to gank bottom lane, gank mid lane, or gank top lane, it doesn't matter. Pick the lane that's gankable and get it done before the enemy jungler finishes their clear. They are always creating tempo for themselves as Vi and not putting themselves in a position like the gold jungler, as you can see, consistently stopping doing random clears as you would have seen on the side-by-side 242 with a leash versus 240 without a leash. That is inexcusable. And these variations in game plans are really fundamental to your success as a jungler. Look at these highlights of our gold jungler doing a 4 camp, 5 camp, 6 camp, and instead of actually using the advantage versus the enemy jungler, is just being caught out. The enemy jungler clears faster, and even though Vi gets kills in some occasions, don't results-based think that. The clear wasn't good in the face of it, and you only got fed because the enemy jungler is also gold 4. It means that our gold 4 Vi is particularly always in a situation where she has to ask, well, now what do I do? Enemy clears faster than me, gets the gank off, we have to 2v2. I didn't get ahead of the map, and now I'm basically following the enemy jungler around. I can't match the AFK farming, thus by farming a lot more, I coin flip the scenario. I might have killed the Lilia, but she respawns and gets a double kill bot lane because I'm worried about my Gromp. I try to go on a Viego 2v2 top lane, but because I did a 5 camp, I couldn't do anything about it. Compare that to our challenger jungler who is pathing in the opposite direction to the Lilia, makes a play on the mid lane, and then can counter gank on the top side. The whole map belongs to her. The whole point of this is understand what jungler you're facing, understand that within the elo you're playing, you want to get onto the map first to make things happen. And this continues because as we look at game styles and of course highlights of that, as you will see in your screen, if you can't understand matchups and you at least have a very good first clear, then you can still look to have good game impact. However, if you have no idea about jungle matchups, you have really weak clears, and you'd think with 1 million points you understood how to do that, essentially you are continuously being a random coin flip player. The Lilia example was one of them, but there are many replays like this where essentially low kill participation, frequently has low damage, overcommits to ganks and dies a lot because it's always trying to catch up to the ganks that they should have had by just not doing a 5 and 6 camp. The gold player continuously tries to rush 6 and in doing so compromises the game by being, as I said, coin flip. And this means you are being a negative or a non-factor jungler. Low damage, low KP jungling shouldn't happen when you're literally meant to know how to use your champ properly. If you consistently have weak KDAs, low damage, and you are not changing the way you clear to basically use your champion's strengths, what exactly are you doing? And what I like to do in coaching sometimes is simply speed it up to 8 times or even more and just watch the character move around the map. And you can see very quickly, even without stopping to see the mechanical moments, fluid, consistent impact while farming and while using ult frequently on cooldowns, as you can see from this kill timeline where the kills just keep coming in. It's not back-ended by some luck where your team carries you. It's not front-ended where you get some cheese and snowball and then throw. It's just consistent impact while maintaining good high damage, controlling objectives, having high kill participation. And yes, while it does rely on good jungling, you'd think by knowing your champion and understanding the limitations with so many mastery points that you'd know exactly how to accentuate this strength, but it turns out that gold 4 means more than the 1 million points. I think everyone knew that, but most importantly, look at this. Using Q to move around the map all the time, that's what a Challenger Vi does. Using abilities on cooldown, what does that mean? Stop saving your abilities for the next blue moon. Stop saving your abilities in case something might happen. Use them now, use them for what they're good for. Don't save that smite when you're not going to contest anything. Smite the crab, take the crab, leave. If there's a dragon going to spawn and a herald going to spawn, yeah, then you don't smite the crab. But why are you walking around the whole map as Vi not using your Q? The cooldown once it's max is really, really low. Get somewhere faster, have impact, get there late, you miss the impact. The Godfall jungler simply doesn't use a Q to move around the map. Out of base, they just walk. They walk everywhere nice and slow. The Challenger Vi decides to use it through the walls to get Krugs, to use it through the walls just to get back to their grub, to use it through the walls just to get to ganks. She's always using that map mobility to get to places quickly. Because champions like Vi and Warwick, if you're fed and you're early, you need to use it. If you're not fed, you need to get involved because you're not going to win by farming. It's exactly the same issues as I highlighted in the early game plan and early clear route section. Being on the map first and making plays first or being able to react to things allows you to actually be a part of the game. If you're consistently AFK and not a part of it, then you are coin flipping by basically saying, laners, do you, and if you win, we win the game. I'm just here for the ride. It's like an Elise always walking around in human form and not spider form, and I've seen million-point Elises do this. Essentially walking around in case they have to cocoon something because they're not thinking about the game from any other perspective other than themselves. Now, low elo and mid elo junglers are completely clueless about a lot of this because they don't have a solid foundation upon which to use their champion properly anyway. Consistently waffling, dying with silly plays, not making the right play, not being there to make the right play, and reacting instead of dictating. Yes, jungle fundamentals will help you with that. This whole channel will help you with that. But if you were just autopiloting your champion to 1 million points, it doesn't mean you really know anything. And if you did, you would read about the abilities, look at the best players in the world in that champion, think, how can I maximize the strength? And by doing that, you would become a better jungler, a better Vi player, or whatever champion player, and you'd actually, not be gold 4. Now, in terms of team fighting, I'm not going to look at the gold team fighting because it involves a lot of walking at the front and dying, ulting the wrong person, queuing the wrong thing, or queuing something before the fight so you don't have Q for the fight, which is the opposite problem. Instead of, saving your abilities when you need to, you just waste it when you don't need to. As always with team fighting, and I've spoken about this a lot with Vi, I will link that in the top right. Ask yourself if there's someone else on the team where you should perhaps ult and Q to peel, or if you're the turbo engage, when you do press Q, make sure you're hitting someone. If you're flash queuing, make sure you're hitting someone. And then of course understand, do I ult the person I queued? Do I need to? Or should I ult someone else? Have one eye looking to the left or one eye looking to the right, and you might look like a dead fish, but at the very least you can misdirect and mislead people in fights by hitting multi-layered CC that helps your team focus down and win fights. And it should look like a fight you saw on your screen now. Good target swap, good target focus initially, and obviously it's very easy. Point and click the person you want to kill. A low elo Vi or gold 4 Vi with 1 million points is simply in the wrong position, ulting the wrong person and dying, and essentially saying, team, carry me. And finally, I will talk about itemization, but for some reason, I'm seeing a lot of Eclipse, Collector, random tank builds, sometimes a Divine Sunder, sometimes a Triforce, sometimes an Eclipse again, always the collector randomly seeps through. The itemization has no consistency, no thought to it, it's just I like lethality and doing damage, I'm gonna build whatever the hell I feel like. Contrast this with a one-trick and a high elo that has a playstyle that suits how they play Vi, whether it's career playing, you know, Divine Sundra based, or you want to do Umbral Glaive Trinity Force like Doompa. The key is they have found an optimized build path for their champion with the way they play the game that accentuates their strengths, covers up weaknesses, and allows them to carry games and play to their win conditions. In this Gold 4 player's case, I do not know what I'm looking at, there is almost no trend, it is completely random, much like their game style. I am unwholly disappointed with what I am seeing. Please guys, if you're gonna have 1 million points on a champion, the least you can do is read the abilities, test out what items actually work with the champion and suit your style, and maximize it and play around it properly. Obviously have adaptive itemization in your tank runes or your damage, you know, based upon what you're facing. You know, like stop being baited into Thormail when there's no one with any healing because you can go Randuin's it significantly better. Don't go Frozen Heart because you want the mana when the whole enemy team combos AP. And hopefully with all of these points and highlighting these big differences, you can take your Vi gaming to the next level. And whether you play a Vi or not, if you simply want to be the jungle difference every game, early, mid, and late, and you want to understand the steps to do so, why don't you get the must-know steps and tips from the video in this box.